Hello and welcome. In today's video, I decided to take a class with another instructor and see what I could learn. And I'm going to share that process with you guys. Hope you enjoy. So I do teach oil painting classes at our local community college, but I always encourage my own students to take classes with other instructors as well. I'm like, okay, now you've taken my class. If you see another beginner class with another instructor, definitely sign up for it because you're going to learn something from that instructor that you didn't learn from me, and it's going to be invaluable. So I also follow my own advice and try and take classes whenever I can. This time I decided to take the class that the paint coach was offering for free. It's a week-long class. He is also here on YouTube, so I'll link his information down in the description box below and probably put a little iCard in the corner for you. While his painting style doesn't exactly match mine, I can learn something from anybody. So I wanted to take advantage of his free week-long course and participate. So let's just get started. To get started with this process, this is the reference picture here, the apples and the cherries, and this is the steps that he says we ought to take. And also with this, there's some grids that overlay the drawing basically so that you can just kind of sketch on your canvas directly. Here are the supplies that I'll be using. I didn't have a 6x8 canvas, so mine's a 5x7. I put a grid on it. These are just palette sheets. They're like wax paper, parchment paper, stuff I've had since I was a young girl. My odorless mineral spirits here with a lid. It's all safe. I love this silicoil jar because it has that coil in it so you can rub your brush against it and help get it clean. And then I am so fortunate because I talked the college into getting the paint coach brush set for my students for the beginner oil painting class because the college provides all the supplies. And so I thought, well, I better get a set for myself and make sure that I know how to use them and that I like them, and I do. They're very nice brushes. So I have his brushes, which is ironic, and then so generously a good friend sent me some oil paints, and all of these out of the bag, there's a bunch more, but all of these happen to be Gamblin, which is the same brand that the paint coach uses. And here I thought I'd really like to try that solvent-free gel stuff, and it was also in the bag. So I was going to pull out my liquid and see if that would work just as well as this. I mean, I have no idea because I've never used this before, but I used to use liquid as a medium all the time. But this was in there, and this is what he uses and what's recommended. Plus the 3 colors that he recommends, although he uses the cadmium red medium, I believe. No big deal, but it's everything I need to match what he's doing. It's so cool. So one thing he is doing in this exercise is toning the canvas. I don't often tone the canvas, but I'm going to try it this time because why not? Let's just get painting already, huh? So in the spirit of trying to keep with the same colors and whatnot that he used, I just laid out those colors that you see there on that canvas paper. And so I am attempting and succeeding at making my own version of a burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is a popular color for people to use to tone their canvases. A lot of people consider it fairly neutral, and they enjoy having that down on their canvas first. So it's a good start, and you can see that I did that and then wiped it off with a towel so it wouldn't be thick or gooey. So something I debated about before I even started this process was if I should put my grid on after toning the canvas, but I thought the toning would be so thin that it wouldn't matter. I would be able to see my pencil lines through there. And I think I would have been able to see my pencil lines through there, but by using the odorless mineral spirits to thin my paint so much, it actually pulled the graphite right off of the canvas. There is no pencil lines left on this canvas at all. So I'll probably just have to put them back on if I want to use the grid method. You can see in this first iteration here, I did put the grid lines back on, and then I'm sketching in the apple and the cherries. It's so easy to do with a grid method. If you guys don't know what a grid method is and you want me to explain that in a future video, let me know in the comments below, or definitely just go search YouTube for grid method of drawing or grid transferring. It's very handy to do. And the first step in this little apple tutorial was to lay in the big shapes, and basically that includes the big shapes of light and the big shapes of dark. So in this step, he did not want us to get too detailed at all, just kind of put in the basics. And I often do just kind of map out my colors when I'm oil painting or any kind of painting. So this wasn't new to me. It's just that he did it in a little bit more blurry of a first step than I would. I go a little more detailed apparently in my first step, but this was really fun to try. I really like to give the teacher the benefit of the doubt and do what they say. So the next step is then to go in and add a little more detail. So make the lights a little lighter, the darks a little darker if they need to be, kind of start blending things together and moving on from there. Now, just so you're aware, at the very end, I had a corrupted file. I was able to recover 3/4 of the file of the end of this painting, but you will see it again at the very end when I do the summary. So if it seems like it cuts off suddenly, it does, but I will show it to you again, so have no fear. But yeah, you can see things are just coming together. They're still a little blocky, so I have to adjust them a little bit. And then I was getting used to working with the medium and how thin or thick this particular paint brand should be. So I had the paint a little too thin, so I have to have a super gentle touch when I'm adjusting things. Otherwise, it does try to pull the paint off of the canvas. So that is a good lesson for the next painting, which you will see in this video. So you can see I did a little bit better in the next painting as far as the slickness or thickness of the paint. So it's always good to get that out of your system with a new brand of paint anyway. For the next project in the Paint Coach week, we will be using a 9x12 canvas. And this is a canvas panel that was sent to me by Chocola a long time ago, and I was supposed to do a review on it a long time ago, but other things got in the way. So finally, we will be using this canvas panel from Chocola and seeing what we think. So I learned my lesson the last time, and I am going to tone the canvas this time before I put my grid on. The idea in this one is to do this little beach scene that I'm showing you in the upper right corner. And you can see I toned the canvas, put the grid on, and now I'm kind of sketching in here. Now, I did not look at this final reference photo at all because I was trying to do it in the steps that he recommended. And the step one was just block in the big shapes. And so he gave us a reference showing just the big blocked in shape. So I'm doing this big block of trees here, and that kind of bit me in the butt later because really I like to do the sky behind the trees first and lay the trees over the top. Now it worked later, as you'll see as this process goes along, putting in some of the sky after that, but I would have preferred to do it the other way. However, I was following the process, having faith, and just seeing how his process felt for me. And some of it works for me and some of it doesn't. And I think that's fun to figure out. Now, one thing I would caution you if you were following along also in anything like this is go ahead and cheat, if you want to call it that, and look at the final reference photo because I was having some trouble figuring out what some of these big blocky shapes were. And I don't know why I didn't just go look at the other photo. Maybe that's because it's on the computer that kept crashing. And yeah, it's crashing again all the time. So maybe I just didn't want to deal with turning that on and having it crash on me or whatever, but I didn't go look at the final reference photo. So some of this in the background, I'm like, is that supposed to be a big like mountain that has sand on it? Is it supposed to be a mountain with trees on it? Like clear in the back there, the ones that are getting lighter and lighter. I didn't know. Also, I didn't realize that the beach in the front here should extend to the left past that because we're actually going to make this big clump of things on the bottom left kind of a grassy things that go up, and the beach needs to show behind it. And that was really hard to do after the fact once I had that big clump of that yellowy ochre color in there already. So definitely do look ahead because it's important in my opinion. And I should have done that. I should have done a better job of that. I also was not very inspired by this reference photo. The composition just seemed a little off to me. Now, he really, really likes this composition, and I will tell you that I did sign up for the promo he gave after this Paint Coach class. Wait, what was this called? Paint Week was over. He let us get into all of his classes for like $77. Now, my students, when they come into my classes here at CMC, they're 6 weeks long, 3 hours, for 6 weeks, and they end up paying, I think it's around $130. So $77 for 3 or 4 of his classes seemed like a steal. So I went ahead and signed up. I do want to learn some more from him, but there are things that I'm going to change about his methods. I'm going to mix his methods with mine and just glean any tips and info that I can from his classes and go from there. But yeah, you need to get the whole picture. I mean, that's kind of obvious. You need to know what the whole picture is before you start, but I don't know. I was being stubborn, or I don't know what I was being. Unmotivated by this particular reference photo, I think. That was the biggest problem. But I forced myself to finish. I forced myself to keep working. And it wasn't like forcing. I do really enjoy working with oil paints. You can see I'm putting in some final touches here, but I'm like, I am so over it. I'm done. But it's okay at the end. I think they turned out okay. And it was really fun to work with these supplies. And this concludes Paint Week. Da-da-da-da. Well, that was fun. It forced me to paint things and just paint in oils, period, which I wouldn't have done this week at all if it hadn't been for this class. So there's something to be said about that for sure. And I like the subject that we did here, but that one, as I mentioned, just did not inspire me. And I'm really glad I got to try the Gamblin oil paints because they're not different than the other oil paints I've been using, and this solvent-free gel is just regular medium. There's nothing super special about it that I can tell. I actually preferred thinning with paint thinner, but I think that probably would change with circumstances and what I'm painting. Well, I certainly hope this was at least interesting for you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now. Wow, the lid went through all the paint.